Atlantis, The Lost Empire is actually a movie that me and my wife watched not too long ago. It was one that I hadn't seen before and she loved, so we picked it up on Blu-ray and I found it to be pretty enjoyable. The sequel, Milo's Return, is the film that got picked for 31 for 31 this time around, and why not give The Lost Empire a rewatch? The film is about a young man named Milo Thatch who wants to find the lost city of Atlantis and feels like he's got a pretty good idea of where it would be. The Adventure Guild, or whatever they're called, mock him for it when Mr. Whitmore picks him up and Milo joins his team to find Atlantis. Atlantis being one of the Disney films to use whatever the style of animation is called again, where it's blending different techniques, kind of like Tarzan and Treasure Planet did, and the film just looks absolutely beautiful. Like, I understand how expensive this style of animation was, but man does it look great, and I would love to see more of it. Again, just let me throw out a spoiler warning since we will be talking about the sequel in this video, so spoiler warning. But anyway, I just found this one to be a pretty fun action adventure with a great cast of characters. Each character feels fully developed and easy to want to see more of. Milo is a fun lead even if he's not very charismatic, but that in a way does kind of make him a more interesting lead choice for a movie like this. The humor just lands for me, it's quippy and fun. The villain of the movie feels like a real threat, but you can also understand why they're making the decisions they're making. There's a real sense of wonder when they venture in to find Atlantis and the world of Atlantis. One of my biggest problems is that there's a love plot that is really underdeveloped, but it is what it is. This is just one of those films that, while kind of on the darker side for Disney for sure, would be a good watch for all ages, and there is something that I think most people could get out of from this film. It's just very entertaining and a lot of fun with some great pacing, and I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. Now on to the sequel, Atlantis, Milo's Return, released in 2003, and let's talk real quick about the Disney sequels. Rarely do Disney animations at this time ever get a sequel that wasn't like straight to VHS, straight to video. The life cycle of Disney animation around this point was pretty much the main movie, then a year or two later a straight to video sequel that could act as a bounce off point for a short-lived TV series. I think the only franchise to kind of not suffer from this syndrome was Lilo and Stitch, but there could be more. But that's not even really what Milo's Return is. This is a remains, a stitched together corpse of what the Atlantis TV series was going to be, because Atlantis ended up not being a very huge success. The show was scrapped and morphed into a waste of the longest 70 minutes ever. This is basically 3 episodes that have no rhyme or reason as we jump from one story to another that's very poorly stitched together, with a constant restart in a way that just stretches out the pacing to where I felt like it was just never going to end. This has all the trappings of Disney straight-to-video sequels, with even worse pacing. From bad to lazy animation where they couldn't even been bothered to animate talking.
Yes, your decision to stay here wasn't as hard as I thought.
To splitting up the characters to keep the ensemble apart to cut costs, to just not having any of the wonder or imagination of the first film. This movie doesn't even do Atlantis. They're venturing around other places looking for Atlantean things, kind of like the Stitch show where they're looking for the other experiments. Back to that shitty animation, the proportions are all out of whack and the backgrounds feel more like cutouts. There's no sense of dimension like the original. They also just reuse a lot of the same sound effects over and over, which just gets annoying after a while. The 3 stories here are basically like, the first one is about a Leviathan causing problems that they think could be the guardian of Atlantis. The second is about dust coyotes and corporate greed basically. The third one is about a weirdo who thinks he's Odin and trying to collect a spear. It's just lame and barely a movie. I don't even know if I would call this a movie, honestly. It's just 3 episodes smushed together. The one positive thing I will say is they were able to get most of the original cast to return to reprise their roles, and the ones who didn't, they were able to find voice actors that sounded pretty close or close enough not to be a distraction. Overall, this is a 2 out of 10 for me. The first I definitely recommend 100%. Even if you love the first film, I still probably wouldn't recommend the sequel here. Even if this was a TV series, I don't think it would have been worth watching, as it doesn't provide anything that the original does besides the characters. Boo.